Welcome to PodCapers, the official podcast of a place to hang your cape. And this week, we're not talking about a damn dirty ape, we're talking about a damn suave ape. Oh my. Cue the music! Hello there, capers, and welcome to PodCapers, the official podcast of a place to hang your cape. My name is Scott James Merridew, and this is a show where we talk about various geek and nerdy related topics, and are joined by a very special different guest. And this week, I am joined by the creator of Bubbles 07, that's something we're going to be talking about today. Please, capers, give it up for Grainne McEntee! Are you still there?
Hello.
Hello. Sorry.
Hello, PodCapers. It's nice to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us. I was worried that we lost you for a second, that the internet had just gone wrong.
It does that sometimes.
Yeah, it happens a lot with me, because I'm the furthest, in my flat, I'm the furthest away from the router, so I get, like, the scraps of Wi-Fi.
Oh, well, given what you do, I think that's rather unfair, and you need to renegotiate that position.
I've tried, but unless I start living in the living room, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So, Grainne, come on, let's hear about you. Tell us about yourself. What do you do? What do you get to? What's your life story? I want details.
Oh, my life story. Good grief. That's not asking a lot. It's not the question you get asked very often unless you're in the pub and completely drunk and you remember nothing about it the next day. But I suppose, centering around comics, I suppose we could go back to 2012, when my
the year when the world almost ended.
Yes. Was there a planet supposed to rocket into Earth or something like that? Maybe, yeah.
No, the Mayans said that the world would end, and it was a whole bunch of bullshit. But the world did end, because that's when I found out that Disney were doing Star Wars.
Oh, yeah, that must have got a lot of people's hearts ripped out of their chests, I think.
I cried. I cried, and I was in the fetal position on my flatmate's floor at uni, just sobbing whilst he was trying to Skype his girlfriend.
Well, Disney are taking over the world. I think we've just got to face that fact.
That must be stopped!
Well, that's what we're here to do, isn't it? The little independent creator is here to try and save the day and bring something new and fresh to the scene, and hopefully infuse Disney with something a little bit more mundane than their regular perception of the world.
Absolutely. We shall stand fast and firm against the ongoing monopoly of the evil House of Mouse. We will never surrender. We will... Oh, sorry, one sec. Oh, I've just been informed that a place to hang your cape has been bought by Disney. All hail the mouse. Oh, God.
Well, that'll be good. You can all retire now, can't you?
No, we can all get fired now, and that's what's going to happen. No. Back to you. We won't. We get distracted along the show. We'll try not to do that too much.
That's fine. That's part of the fun, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So Matt and I, my partner of 14 years, he wanted to get back into comics. I wanted to try my hand at writing. So we began with a little creation called Apes and Capes.
Mm-hmm. We'll talk a bit about that later when we start on the show. And what happened after that? How did that change your life?
Well, we attended Kapow, Mark Miller's second Comic Con in Islington, and that was went really well. You know, we were brand new to the scene. We sold about 60 copies of the first issue, which we thought was fantastic for a completely unknown little creation. Absolutely. And then from there, we produced 3 more issues. I'd been heavily influenced by Arthur C. Clarke stuff, so it kind of got a little bit...
The great granddaddy of sci-fi.
No, he is. Between him and Isaac Asimov, they're like my 2 favorite sci-fi authors.
I think H.G. Wells is probably the great granddaddy of science fiction. They're just the granddads.
Yeah, good point. So that whole thing got a little bit out of control, and my world building couldn't keep up with my storytelling. So I took a step back from that, and then 2 years ago, Matt and I came up with the idea for Bubbles 07.
Yeah. Now, I've read first 3 installments of this. The one up to... it's just before he goes on the mission to find that Japanese monkey type thing.
Yes, so The Ape Who Punched Me was the last one, where he was in Belfast.
Oh, yes, I did like that one. So let's talk a bit about Bubbles 07. Now, describe for me in one word what Bubbles 07 is all about.
One word. You are evil.
I am. Now, you don't have to do it in one word. You don't have to do one word. Just tell us what Bubbles of Seven is about. I'm dying to know.
I'm gonna go with the obvious one. He is completely born out of my love for James Bond.
Mm-hmm.
I'm heavily, even though I don't particularly like the writings of Ian Fleming per se, I find them a little bit laborious to read.
You say laborious, I say racist and sexist, but go on.
Well, I am specifically talking about his writing style. I'm still only.
Does he go like on describing like things just for pages and pages?
Yes, yeah, he does. He does like to self-indulge like that. Yeah, and
I've only read one Ian Fleming novel. It was the novel that I don't know if it was. I can't remember if it was called On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Yeah,
but that's what. Oh, right. So because that's I read the book that the film On Her Majesty's Secret Service was based on.
Yeah.
And I also read a book that wasn't by Fleming, but it was a James Bond book. I can't remember what it was called. Who was it written by? Written by someone.
Anthony Horowitz does a lot of James Bond stuff.
It wasn't him, although I am a big fan of his work, at least until he said
Charlie
that thing
Hickson?
about... no, not Charlie Hickson, although the young Bond books. I actually have read quite a lot of Bond books. There's only one of them that's in Fleming. Charlie Hickson, he did the young Bond books, which I really liked. They were very good. But we're going back to On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I didn't think it was that laborious. I don't know if he had sort of smoothed out his writing style by then. And it's the first one to show, at least I think it's the first one to show James Bond actually in a bit more of human light, because he's actually considering, settling down, actually building a life with someone, and he's a bit hesitant about that. He's not really ready to leave the Playboy lifestyle behind, but eventually he does, and he's happy, and that ends pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, and that was it is probably my favourite movie, Her Majesty's Secret Service, even though Lazenby only did one. And I think I admire the fact that Lazenby just brought to that role a kind of arrogance and self-assurance that just shone through as the Bond character is. I mean, he was a car salesman in Park Lane, for God's sake, and he got picked up. He was modelling as well, and he just got picked up for the role. And
then his agent said, wasn't it, that these Bond films aren't going to go on for very much longer, so any contract for one.
That's right, and he just ditched it. Terrible.
And then we got Sean Connery back. I mean, I like Sean Connery, at least as Bond, but we didn't need him back for Diamonds Are Forever. That was Lazenby's story. He was going on revenge.
Yeah, that's what confused me as well. There was a great setup at the end of Secret Service for a proper revenge story, like they did in the reboots with Casino Royale.
Bond cry. He cried.
Yes, but did you know the director had actually got him up at like 5 a.m. and worked him really hard and made him rehearse. And by the time they filmed that at 5 p.m. in the evening, Lazenby was so exhausted and so broken. That was how he got the performance out of him. He just broke down. So there's a lot of love in Bond. There's a lot of crazy stuff as well. But it's such a British institution. There's really nothing not to like about it, despite the racist, misogynist dinosaur thing. It's good fun. So yeah, Bubbles is kind of like, he's modelled on Bond, but he's a bit of an antithesis to Bond because he's not the. He's a
bit more refined, a bit more elegant.
He's not the alcohol swilling, woman hungry ape.
He's a smoothie swilling.
He is. He's kind of like, and I chose the bonobo because they are pretty much.
They're the closest analog to humans that in apes, apparently, genetically speaking.
Pretty much, but they're much more sexually orientated. They're much more friendly and troop. So every gesture is accompanied with a sexual act, basically. So they say hello, they say goodbye, they basically get it on. It's a very close knit troop of apes. So completely opposite to chimpanzees that are quite violent. So I thought it would be nice to
They're
use.
the hippies of the monkey world.
They are. That's a great way to describe them. So I thought, as an antithesis, to kind of use a bonobo as Bond, but yet make him completely the opposite to Bond in that respect would be quite fun.
I think it's a really good job you did that, because if you had done him pretty much exactly like Bond, then it would just be like, ooh, look, it's James Bond, but he's an ape. Ooh, how funny. And this evolves the character, and he's inspired by, but he's not a rip-off of Bond. I think it's great that you do that. I honestly, when I was reading, I saw more of John Steed in Bubbles than I did Bond. So
that's a good point, actually. Yeah, and even his sidekick, Miss Prime, is modelled a bit on Steele's. What was her name?
Well, there's various. There's Cathy Gale. There's Emma Peel. There's other ones that no one cares about.
Yeah. Emma Peel was the first one that sprang to mind. Yeah. So.
Yeah, she came after Kathy Gale. It was Kathy Gale, played by Honor Blackman, and then Emma Peel, played by Diana Rigg. Both ended up being Bond women.
Yes. It was a very, very close incestuous circle of spy people, really, in that time. But yeah, he's growing and evolving, and I've got the last 3 plotted out now. It's just, and I know how it's going to end. It's going to be a pretty explosive ending, as in typical Bond fashion. It should be, I suppose. Absolutely. But and we've got that's going to be probably in the last half of next year when that's all done, because we're talking about 60 pages of comic and artwork to pull together. But in the interim, I've enlisted Charlie Hogg to do a little digi-commie for the spring. There's a scoop for you for the spring to just kind of fill that gap of a little kind of sideline mission that Bubbles does when he's between Japan and Malaysia in the interim of that story. Yeah.
Oh, good. A little bubble fix. The bubble fix. God, that'll be interesting. So, okay, let's start right from the beginning. Apes and Capes. Now, I'm very sorry, I have not read Apes and Capes as right now. We'll get to it eventually. So, just describe to me about Apes and Capes. What's that? And I guess because they both deal with apes, obviously they're kind of closely linked.
Yes, well, my job is orangutan conservation. So that's what I do in my full-time existence during the week when I'm not writing. And the Apes and Capes is really born out of kind of understanding a little bit closer what we're missing in our relationship between animals and humans.
So it's not just because I really like this animal, it's come out of a deeper understanding.
Yes, yeah, okay. Absolutely. It's that untapped intelligence that apes have that we so regularly ignore, and we just like sitting and pointing at the funny monkey in a cage in the zoo and what they're doing with their bananas and stuff like that.
Yeah. Monkey!
Exactly. Who's the monkey? That's what I ask myself all the time. Yeah. So that's born out of a love of that, and it kind of trying to make a connection with our evolutionary history, really, because we're just off that line of primate, and we're probably closer to them than we give ourselves credit for.
I mean, is it like, I don't know if it was bonobos or if it's chimpanzees. I don't think it's chimpanzees. It was like 99% of our DNA is the same.
Yes, yeah. Chimpanzees and bonobos are closer, and orangutans about 97%, so they're a little bit further back, but to
put it in context, we share 50% of our DNA with bananas, but still.
This is true. Yes. So yeah, keep that in mind when you're being specious, I suppose.
Yeah.
So the whole premise of, just in a nutshell, of Apes and Capes is there's a company that is kind of elevating their status because the company has made a discovery of a genetic thread in humanity that allows them to better communicate with animals and understand their thinking more, almost a kind of telepathy or ESP between animals. And there's only a 5% portion of the population that can do this. So that's the premise of that story. And as I said, I was Arthur C. Clarke influenced, who is just an incredible world builder. So there's a lot of more background stuff I have to do there. So I shelved that for the moment, and just Matt and I decided we wanted to focus on something that was just a little bit more fun, which is why we started on Bubbles, because we know we can finish that, get it done and dusted in one nice graphic novel before the end of next year.
Because here's the thing about it, because I mean, I'm glad that you do this whole thing based on understanding and forging a connection with these animals, because a lot of the time in pop culture, both in comics and cartoons and movies and stuff like that, often I find it's apes and monkeys and things like other primates often portrayed in a very negative light. Now, this is going to be like the height of political correctness. Like, you can't get more politically correct than this. But I do feel this way, because I mean, like, there's things in Marvel, like there's like Hit Monkey, and at DC have got all sorts of like Gorilla Grodd and all these sorts of things. And we could go on and talk about Planet of the Apes. Come on. The worst nightmare for humanity, apes have taken over, and they're the dominant things. I think there's this whole thing where it's very easy portraying animals as the bad guys because they can't fight back. They can't complain. There's anti-animal defamation leagues. Really, there really is. Like, I remember after The Lion King came out, a couple of activist groups were really quite harsh about the film because it portrayed hyenas in such a negative way.
Okay.
No, this is real. This happened. And rightly or wrongly, I do think it's a bit much to constantly and consistently portray animals, especially apes, in this way. It's kind of like, you don't have to do that.
You don't. I mean, you could argue that it's a bit lazy, I suppose, and not very. You're not really giving. You're using the animal as a tool, as a comedy tool, and like you say, an evil representation of something that humanity has decided that it doesn't want any part of, other than to farm or control or use in entertainment or stuff like that.
Yeah,
but
I mean, then there are. There's other aspects of that as well. Often it's the comedic side also that's worse. I mean, in the 70s and 80s and stuff, there was a ton of movies featuring, people and monkeys. There was Any Which Way But Loose.
Yeah.
Thing that Ronald Reagan did, Dunstan Checks In.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, oh, look, if we put a monkey in it, it'll be funny.
Yeah.
You have to think a bit more than that.
Yeah, yeah. But to be fair, that's appealing to an American audience, really. And that's kind
yeah, oh yeah.
That's America, sorry.
Yeah.
It did work, and it got bums on seats. And, apes have been part of the entertainment culture for so long. And I have absolutely loved what the new franchise of Planet of the Apes has done with CGI.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
It's amazing.
I've never cared about a filthy monkey man before.
Before Caesar came into your life.
Yeah. I mean, geez, I believe the relationship between him and James Franco, and as I said before on this show, I hate James Franco's face.
Me too. Yeah. Funny we got that in common. Yeah, yeah.
I like him. I think he's a good man. I think he's a great actor. I kind of hate his face. Don't know what it is. It's not his fault. His face is perfectly fine. It's just... I don't know. I don't know. But I liked him in that movie, and they only got better after that.
They did.
I was very apprehensive about the latest one, War from the Planet of the Apes, was it? Or was it Dawn? I don't know. You can pretty much interchange the titles. And I was very apprehensive because I thought, okay, they've had one good one great one. Will they be able to continue this trend?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they did.
They did. So consistent and so good. And I mean, Circus was just incredible in that role. And in the last one, you can't really fault Woody Harrelson. He was inspired as the evil human, just trying to save his. And that's what I loved about it. It completely split your loyalties. You questioned the rights.
Am I rooting for the man or the apes? And it's like, I'm rooting for the apes. I don't care.
Yeah, but just the story writing and the way the story was handled. I just thought it was deft. It was really good, really good.
God, it was awesome.
Yeah.
And God, the relationship between I can't was it Maurice and the little girl Nova?
Yeah.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah.
Like that. So, as someone who knows a bit about this sort of stuff, do you think they got that down in terms of like the ape movements and the ape psychology and all that sort of stuff?
Oh, absolutely. They did their homework really, really well. It was just perfect. And I did see some of the background work when they were working on green screen and just as them with their arm extensions rolling about the floor and riding on horses. And it was just fantastic. The amount of, and they had the woman who was doing Maurice, she was actually an orangutan expert as well. So she knew her stuff inside out.
Brilliant. I'm really glad they did their homework on that.
Yeah.
Good. So obviously you have a big love of apes, you have a big love of spy stuff. At what point did these two intersect?
Well, it was literally 2012. I mean, the Apes and Capes stuff is entirely born out of the work that I do, but Bubbles '07, certainly I think around the time, was it Skyfall?
Oh, yeah, Skyfall was around 2000. No, it was a bit later than that. Or was it? I don't know. No, Spectre was more recent. So yeah, about 2012.
Yeah, Spectre was 2015, wasn't it? And it was just, this is like monkeys and spies. You can't really go wrong, but we have to make him, something a little bit above your average ape. So that's kind of what we aimed for. He's kind of somewhere in between James Bond and a bonobo, So he's kind of walking that line between the human and the hairy human, I suppose. So yeah, I mean, Skyfall for me is it was a top Bond movie, that entire reboot from Casino Royale.
Is it a definitely reboot, though? I'm not so sure it is. I think...
Well,
I mean, James Bond films always plays fast and loose with
they
canon
do
and
timelines
timeline.
and stuff like that. I know it's fairly just make it up as you go along. But I do think because in the opening scene in Casino Royale, he is not a 00 just yet. So he's been sent to kill that guy at the beginning of the sequence, and that's when he achieves his 00 status. So in that sense, and the first book, which I'm trying desperately to get through, Casino Royale with Bond and Vesper Lind and Le Chiffre and all that sort of thing. It is quite.
They went to win a lot of money at a gala, Casino Royale. I like the first one. I don't care.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
That's fun.
But the reboot kind of inspired me to just merge the two, I think.
Yeah. I think what I like it is because it's this absurd idea, but because it's where you've handled it in such a serious way, but not too serious, so it's like you can poke a little fun here and there, but still these are real characters.
Yeah.
That's what makes it work for me.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that because that's kind of what we were going for. We still wanted the occasional pun, the occasional sexual innuendo in there just to balance things out. But
because it's a spy comic, you can't not.
Yes, exactly. And he's like Bond. He's a real character with a real chip on his shoulder about the experimentation that's been done on him, and now the work that he's been asked to do against his fellow animals. So that's going to all kind of come to a head in the last 3 issues as well.
Yeah, loyalties will be tested.
Indeed.
So let's just talk a bit about, as much as you're willing to, talk about the character of Bubbles 07. Who is he? What's he going on? What's going on with him? I don't want you to spoil too much because I want people to go out and get these comics. So just give a brief overview of him.
Okay. The entire backstory is set in MI7, which I borrowed. It was a real military intelligence sector back in. It was in the War Office in World War II.
I thought that was SOE.
No, MI7 was there to deal with foreign press and propaganda.
Oh, okay.
So they were dealing with what was coming out of Germany and what was being reported to the British public and managing and controlling that.
No, Churchill doesn't do that in the bath. Stop it, Germany. He doesn't do that. He did do that other thing, but we're not letting that go out to the public yet.
Well, that would be funny.
Oh, dear. I can just imagine.
So I didn't want to use MI6 because obviously it's too obvious. But yeah, MI7, they reboot. You at the beginning of the Ape Who Punched Me, you see and the one before, there's a meeting between Prime's father and a high up in the Parliament, and we're talking about rebooting the program and actually using animals to spy on other parts of the world or cause havoc or just generally do their thing on behalf of the British government to cause chaos or whatever is needed at that particular time. And I've tentatively called that the SPIRIT program, which is an acronym for Species Intelligence Weapon Integrated Technology, because you have to do something crazy.
I love an acronym. I love it.
I thought, what could be like Spectre, but not Spectre. So they have...
It's spelled SPIWIT. Spirit.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay, who came up with this an acronym? It was Jeff. Jeff, why do you do this? I don't know. I just like it. I like
yes,
it.
That's one of the voices in my head. That's exactly what he sounds like.
Yeah.
From there we see a little bit of the experimentation that's going on, and then a moment where the lights go out and all the animals that are currently being worked on are escape, but Bubbles chooses to stay. So he has an agenda all of his own. So he's basically walking that line between animal and human, quite literally. So MI7 use him because of his understanding of the program, etc., to round up the rogue escaped spirit subjects.
It's a bit Nikita in that way. Isn't that the plot of La Femme
yes.
Nikita? Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh.
And to be fair, I don't really do this kind of stuff consciously. It's like Chris Sides and I were talking about, you're aware of Chris Sides, I take it, Mr. Impossible, Whispering Sands. He's a writer that lives locally as well.
All right.
So we meet up occasionally and talk comic crap. And you just kind of fill your head with all this pop culture and
it's the zeitgeist. It permeates everything. There's nothing original under the sun. So even if you think you're not doing something consciously, it's going to be similar and reminiscent of something else.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you've seen it and you're kind of subconsciously aware of it, but then you find yourself putting it in, and then somebody says, "Yeah, it's a bit like Nikita," and I go, "Oh yeah." Good point.
It's not a bad thing. It's not like you ripped off Nikita. It's just that's a thing that happened. It's
It's just fused into your world, isn't it? It becomes part of it because it's a jumbled up mess in your head, and then you just vomit it out on the page, basically.
Yeah, you vomit up pop culture soup.
Exactly, and try to make sense of it.
The images we're putting in the capers' minds right now. So let's talk a bit about Prime. Now, she seemed. She and Bubbles have got an interesting relationship.
That's been commented on before, yes. Nothing untoward is going on, nothing interspecial or anything like that.
We're not going to Howard the Duck territory.
No, we're not. No, we're not.
No!
There will be none of that.
What are you doing, Caroline in the City? Stop that! That's wrong!
Bubbles is pretty much a clean living ape, and Prime is again sort of in an infiltration by her father to keep an eye on things and keep him in line, make sure he's doing what he has been tasked to do. But
oh my god! I've just had a thought.
Yeah.
If Prime and Bubbles did get together and they had a baby together, that would be called Prime Ape, the Pokemon. Oh my god!
What are you doing to me?
I don't know. I don't know why I had that thought. It just came into my mind and now I can't get it out. No, Primate, no.
This is pop culture's fault. It's scrambled brains all over the world to come up with this stuff.
Oh god, I am one sick puppy. There's something wrong with me.
Let's not do that. I don't even want to revisit that kiss between in the other Planet of the Apes.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no, Mark Wahlberg, another person whose face I don't like. No.
That's the one.
I mean, it's sad because he had more chemistry with that ape than he did with the human female. I can't remember who she was. Just like he had more chemistry with the ape, but still wrong. No.
Yeah, it just didn't look right, did it?
No.
So yeah, just think of as Prime as his babysitter, I suppose, in a way.
His handler.
His handler, that's the one. Yeah.
And not in a zoo way.
Not in a zoo way. No, she is his colleague and compatriot. So
So this is what I like about your comic, is that this idea with animals with not just near intelligence, but actual intelligence and articulation means that so much of society, because society is built around animals, it always has been, it would have to change. So safari parks and zoos and stuff like that are closing, and Bubbles is quite happy about that.
Yes.
It's like putting our human prisoners on display, out in the open.
Exactly.
It's kind of weird.
It is. There's nothing healthy about it, and I think if we just took a step back and looked at what we were doing, we would be reminded of that. I saw today that one of the I just picked it up on social media, an Osprey player tried to pet a lion that was in a cage, and he nearly got his hand ripped off.
There's a giant man-eating beast that is not domesticated. I'm just gonna go and pat it on the head like a numpty.
It looks like a kitten, all cute. Rawr. No.
Just because you see videos on YouTube of people, cuddling with tiger cubs or full-grown leopards and stuff, like, those are trainers that have spent almost their entire day for months and months, perhaps even years, with those animals. They didn't just walk in and start cuddling them.
Exactly. There's a relationship there, and like you say, years of trust.
They know that they are not little kitty cats. They are big, dangerous animals, and they treat them with respect.
That's the key word, isn't it? It's like when they're in cages, we think we're safe, but there's a level of lack of respect that we have for animals because we put them in those control situations. And again, Bubbles is just the antithesis of that. He's all about freedom, and he's all about just getting doing the right thing by both sides, you think, as the story progresses, but then in the end, obviously, he has to choose a side. So after being enlisted by humans and coming to trust them so much, there is an ambiguity for the reader up until the point where you know exactly which side he has chosen to stand on.
We're beginning to see a lot of that in, I think it was called The Ape That Punched Me, you said, where his autistic when he meets this gorilla person.
Yeah.
Yeah, and stuff goes. I'm not going to go into it too much because I want people to read it, but it's kind of interesting. And all that stuff, the first 2 issues, they were drawn by the same person, weren't they?
No, actually, the first issue was my partner, Matt.
All right.
The second issue was Lee Killeen, who's a Liverpool-based artist that we've just built a relationship with and worked on a few other things together before.
All right, so they look very similar. So I don't have the biggest eye for art. I'm a writer sort of person.
Yeah, me too. That's all right. I mean, I think all Lee wanted to do was emulate Matt's style in a sense and kind of stick to what we'd begun with. But the whole intent of having a different artist for each issue is that it's an exercise for me it's a very selfish exercise actually. I want to work with as many artists as possible and try to understand their work ethic and how they do things. And at the same time, I'm just treating it like a Bond franchise, really. It's like different directors, different writers, different
actors. Yeah,
that just come out and come through in each issue. But hopefully in the end it will all come together and make...
you're the Desmond Llewellyn of the whole thing.
Oh God, I hope not. Poor Desmond.
oh yeah, obviously that didn't end well, but while he was in the franchise, that was very good.
Yeah. Can I be Ben Whishaw? That would be so much better.
Oh, fuck Ben Whishaw. No, right, no, sorry, tangent time, here we go. Okay, So, the way it always was, Desmond Llewellyn, older statesman playing Q, and whichever Bond actor, younger Bond actor, and it gave Bond a chance to be, like, a little bit of a kid. It gave him a chance to play around and make jokes at Q, and it's like, oh, grow up, 007. That was, but there was, underneath it all, there was a very interesting and light-hearted relationship there. And... Yeah. That was very, very good. And when Desmond Llewellyn made his final exit out of the franchise, like always have an exit plan or something, and he'd slowly lowered his way out. It was so moving. And then that sort of continued. It didn't really have a chance to blossom with John Cleese, but it was still the same basic relationship. So it's not going to have the same impact as Desmond Llewellyn because he was from it almost right from the start. I think in the first one, Dr. No, he was called Major Boothroyd or something.
That's right.
But it was still the same idea, and it worked, even though he was only in one scene. Then you get Ben Whishaw. It's the only thing I don't like about Skyfall. Fucking Ben Whishaw. Great actor. Great young talent. I think he's very, very good. Did a good job in the role. But you can't have Q played by a young guy. Okay? Because it's not... Because then it's like you've got Daniel Craig, who is much, much older than Ben Whishaw, joking around with like, oh, you're Q, is it past your bedtime or something like, and it's like, no, he's supposed to be joking around with you because he's younger and he's got much more energy and stuff like that. I mean, maybe that's playing to a bit of a stereotype, I don't know, but it just felt wrong. It was so weird to watch and didn't make any sense. And I mean,
oh, this is
I hate talking about stereotypes. I mean, it's too easy. Oh, like the young guy with the trendy hipster glasses and the fluffy haircut. He's really into the gadgets and stuff, and he's really good at that. But what was interesting about Q, played by Desmond Llewellyn and John Cleese, was that he was a much older man that understood gadgets. He was into the cool, gadgety, sciencey, trendy stuff. That was interesting. And you know, James Bond, who is the much younger, much more dapper, much more refined, modern sort of person, still has to kind of understand it and wrap his head around and be explained this stuff by an old man. I thought that was cool, and instead we just get this floppy hipster.
I think, as an attempt to bring the character into the 21st century, it was pretty well done because they couldn't really have done the whole Silva infiltrating the network thing with his suitcase. Llewellyn wouldn't have been able to cope with that. It's kind of like the next gen spy and how how our relationship with Russia and China is working. Everything's online, everything's code, everything's digital. The exchange.
An older person could have coped with that. People do keep up with these sort of things. And my dad, he's up on all the latest gadgets. So my grandparents, both of them. I mean, it's perfectly possible. And I don't like it. I don't know. I feel it felt. I mean, let me put it this way: they didn't need to bring M into the modern century. They got Judi Dench in in the 90s, and that was fine. She continued on up until Skyfall, and the new guy they got, the new M.
Ralph Fiennes, yeah.
Ralph Fiennes, I was about to call him Ralph Fiennes then, that's not it. You don't need to update him, you don't need to modernise him, he's basically the same M as, Judi Dench and the other people. I still like him in the role, but still, yes, the spy world changed, but you don't need to change the character along with that. Can you imagine if they replaced James Bond himself with a fucking teenager? That's like, just like, he get a 16-year-old and they're like, hello, I'm James Bond. I'm going to save the world today. Oh, they did that with Kingsman. Never mind.
No, it's all true. I mean, I get a bee in my bonnet when people want to make Bond either a female or a person of color. And that's nothing to do with me being a misogynist or a racist. It's just simply because the character is completely immersed in Ian Fleming. And it's all about a reflection of his life. So
because James Bond was basically Fleming living vicariously through his character.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why he didn't like Sean Connery when he was in the role, because he was too different from him.
Yeah. He was a white guy with a chip on his shoulder about the world. And if anything, what I would like, just to possibly shelve this subject, because we could go on about this forever.
I definitely could.
I would like to see them drag Bond, the British white guy, into the 21st century by expanding the Bond verse to include more double O's of a female persuasion, of a person of colour persuasion. So he's got to work like he did in GoldenEye. I thought the introduction of Alec Trevelyan was brilliant and really added a new dynamic to the whole world. More of that I would welcome with open arms.
Yeah, and we got a new Moneypenny. She's pretty interesting. She does a lot more than the old Moneypennies.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not just a joke or just to hang around for someone for Bond to flirt with. There's
yes.
more there. God,
yeah, the potential's great. I mean, I think there are hints towards them doing a thing like Marvel Universe, sort of expanding the Bond verse.
Everyone wants an expanded universe.
Yes,
everyone wants to ride that money train, but they don't really kind of grasp that you've got to put effort into it. Do you hear that, Universal? You've got to think it through!
This is true. It's gotten really lazy. I despaired when I saw Spectre. I thought it was just the worst script ever. It was
so disappointing, and so they thought they could just have a good movie because they had Blofeld in it.
Yeah.
And they added all this weird stuff like he and James Bond knew each other when they were young. Like we don't need that. What fan fiction is this?
That was awful. I know. I think out of all the Blofeld characters, he was probably the weakest in my head. And I love Christoph Waltz. I think he's an absolute fantastic actor.
When I heard that he was gonna be Blofeld, I thought, well, that's perfect. He's the exact right person to play it, and he is. He just didn't get a good script or a good character to go along with it.
Exactly. That it was really, really weak on that level.
He didn't even get away at the end of the movie. He was caught. Blofeld got captured. Okay. He's supposed to be like one of the most diabolical criminal masterminds in the world.
Yeah.
And he got captured after this first sort of rebooted incarnation.
Yeah, I think I would have preferred to see Mike Myers in the role over Christoph Waltz in that situation, because it was more comedy than anything else.
I mean, not even the chief got captured. He got axed off by someone else. He might have gotten away if his organisation had caught up with him. Jeez. But we got to move on. We got to move on, because I will rant till the world ends. Jeez. Oh God. Okay. Oh God. Just need to give my voice just a second, just to. Oh God. Right.
I'm sorry. I've raised your blood pressure with this conversation.
It happens all the time. Honestly, there's never a moment in my life when I'm not on the verge of another rant. So now, the reason why we're doing all this is because we got something to talk about in terms of 007. There's a Kickstarter, isn't there?
There is my fourth Kickstarter.
You're an old hat at this. You're a damn hand.
Yes, we're getting there. I mean, every Kickstarter is a new experience, and they don't get any easier. I think, as a lot of people who move in that world can agree. Maintaining that interest when you're only producing 2, maybe 3 comics a year is really a real challenge, because there's so much stuff that people get bombarded with that they lose interest quickly. But the last 3 have been, just borderline. We've hit target, and I've been able to afford to pay our artists, which is essentially what I aim to do. I
always aim to pay the people that work for you. I think that's a good rule of thumb for life.
This is it. In the creator-owned circles, it can be quite challenging, because obviously they work for slightly less than they would if they were doing for one of the big 2. But I think when everybody's pulling together on an issue, it kind of makes you feel part of the process that little bit more. And the Kickstarter will invariably, have a better chance of success. And I have found that when you're doing it just yourself and your reach is so limited, when you bring a fresh artist in with their own followers, you instantly, triple your access to people who might be interested in seeing that person bring something to life.
Yeah, you're building sort of a network right now, because you've got this thing called in the comic, Bubbles is like code name when he was like a science experiment sort of thing, was 511, and you're sort of building now Team 511.
Yes, so we have our regulars with Mike Stock on letters and my partner Matt on editing, myself on writing, and then we usually bring a new artist or a colorist in for the issue. And the next issue is actually called You Only Swing Twice.
Oh, and that's what I love about this, because all the titles of the comics are puns on James Bond things. Like Baboon Taker, Moonraker, A View of a Krill, On Her Majesty's Simian Service, The Ape Who Punched Me, and From the Democratic Republic of Congo with Love.
Yes, that's going to be a good one. So yeah, we kind of wanted to keep to that theme, emulate the Bond verse as much as possible without looking like we were clearly ripping it off. So
Dr. O, anyone?
Dr. O, anyone? Yes. So the next Kickstarter kickstarts on the 7th of October at 7:00 in the evening. British time, and we have the amicable talents of Mr. Phil Buckingham of Rented to the Dead fame doing the art on this issue. Ooh. So he's got a really nice style, and I just thought he's got quite light lines, and it kind of might lend itself a little bit more to an anime feel for the Japanese setting. So we'll see how that turns out anyway. He's currently working on layouts, so I think we will be on track for delivery of the product by Christmas. Things are looking good.
There's a Christmas present for you, folks. If you've got a bit of money left over after buying Fred McNamara's book for Spectrum is Indestructible, which, by the way, it was news recently. Captain Scarlet did turn 50, so happy anniversary to Captain Scarlet.
Wow, happy anniversary, Captain Scarlet.
Thanks, you're welcome. That's not his voice. I don't know. I can't do Captain Scarlet. I can do Mickey Mouse, and that's about it. But anyway, so yeah, that's I'm looking forward to seeing that. That'll be cool. That'll be a good little Christmas present.
Yes. Yeah, so we've got a couple of other artists doing with pin-ups. We've got Kieran Squires and Charlie Hogg doing a pin-up. Katie Fleming, no relation of Ian, is doing a pin-up, and Kevin McHugh, who I met at the Inniskillen 2000 AD Comic Fest. We were just like a table away from each other, and I really liked his stuff, and he's doing a pin-up of the villains of the next installment, The Girl in the Golden Cage.
Oh, okay. Wait, which Bond title is that based on?
The Man with the Golden Gun.
Oh, yes! I try to block that movie out of my mind, except for the parts with Christopher Lee.
It's not right. Nick Nack's the best thing about that movie, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah. I mean, was that was the last one Roger Moore did, wasn't it?
Yes.
I find the reason why he stopped doing them so fascinating, because he was on set with his co-star, whose name and character I completely forget, but he met her mother, and her mum was the exact same age as him, and he was like, oh shit, I'm way too old to be doing this. And he just quit after that.
So his epiphany moment, meeting your sidekick's mother.
Yeah, it was a bit of an eye opener, but yeah.
Yeah.
That was kind of interesting. So speaking of cons, you Comics Fest. So what cons have you done recently, and what cons are you going to do? Where can people find you?
Well, we kind of took a step back from it this year because I did want to just focus more on the writing side of things. And cons, they're great fun, and you get to catch up with a lot of people and hopefully sell a few comics, but they are completely time consuming and rather exhausting. And sometimes they just end up being a bitter disappointment. So we were just going to shelve that this year and pick and choose a few key ones next year, like likely LSCC and one of the MCMs in London, and probably Liverpool MCM, which we haven't been to yet, and one probably Dublin Comic Con as well, because I really want to go back to Ireland and do my first con over there back on home soil.
That'll be. I'm sure that'll be great. I'll look forward. I'm sure many of the capers will look forward to seeing you there. That'll be cool. So now, it's outside of Kickstarter, it's a Bounce Comics where people can find a lot of your stuff, isn't it?
About comics.
No, Bounce Comics.
Oh, Bounce Comics. Yes, sorry. Yes.
We are talking about comics, but we're talking about Bounce Comics.
Yes. Bounce Comics is bouncecomics.co.uk is where we live online, and that's myself, Matt, Brett Uren, John Scrivens, and Anthony Clift. We are a little troupe of creators who just have occasional brainstorms and come up with ideas for different things. So I've contributed to Brett's Torso Bear with a story, and I've also written a story for Andy's new Silver Age inspired comic that he's working on. I won't say any more about that because that's really up to him to.
Top secret.
So yeah, it's fun work. It's fun having that tight little group that you can just experiment with and brainstorm with, and hopefully come out with something. And 95% of it's rubbish and drunken rubbish, but if the 5% works out, then it's all the better.
Yeah, and you could just take the remaining 95% that's rubbish and just sell it to DC.
Oh, you cynic.
I'm not a cynic, I'm a skeptic, and DC has consistently and repeatedly made me angry. So I've given up hoping that they'll do anything good. All I can be now is pleasantly surprised. Wonder Woman, pleasantly surprised. Suicide Squad.
I've not watched that yet. No.
Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Don't.
Don't.
It's not worth your time. Wait till there's Harley Quinn solo movie.
Okay.
Although that probably will also be shit because it's DC. And
I have to admit, the Jared Leto Joker put me off.
Well, you see, he could have been rather good, I thought. It's just that his character was not written well enough, and there wasn't enough scenes with him in. And I mean, I don't know. That movie, that whole movie, everything. They got it, every single bit. They misunderstood the whole point of the Suicide Squad. So are you familiar with the Suicide Squad in the comics?
I'm not, to be honest. It's not really my bag. I kind of slipped me by, but you're
not just superheroes. You're above all that.
No. I'm still a Batman girl.
No!
Yes!
No! We were getting on so well!
I love some of the comics of the Batman story, and I did like Michael Keaton as the original Batman.
Yeah, I like him.
And aside from maybe the very last Christopher Nolan movie, I thought the first two were really good.
I have respect for them. The only Batman movie I genuinely 100% like, others I may kind of like, have a bit of respect for, but not really, is Mask of the Phantasm.
Oh, I've not seen that. No.
Oh, if you want a good Batman movie, that's the one for you. It is amazing. It's based off of, it is a continuation of the Batman animated series, so it's all animated done to that style, but it's beautiful and haunting and really well done. I think it's one of the best superhero movies ever made. I'm willing to stand by that. But the rest of Batman is shit. I don't care about that.
And on that bombshell.
That's not a bombshell. Trust me, I've repeatedly defined my position on DC many times on the show and other people's stuff. Trust me, no one is in the dark about my feelings towards Batman and DC. Because this is a character, basically, that could be defeated by gridlock. Damn it, Alfred, I'm in the Batmobile, and there's traffic everywhere. I'm still a couple of miles away from City Hall where the Joker is holding the mayor hostage. What can I do? Well, Master Wayne, Wait for the traffic to clear. That's gonna be hours. Put on the radio. All right then. Ooh, Classic FM. Nice.
You're missing a trick. You should be writing for DC.
Oh, I'd sort them out good and proper. I swear to God, yeah.
I have to admit, I'm a Marvel girl at heart, really, when it comes to.
Yes, hope for you yet.
But Andy, in his effort to inspire me in the Silver Age realm, got me to read The New Frontier, the DC world.
I think I know it. I've heard of it.
It basically influenced Watchmen, the decline of the superhero kind of thing, set against the backdrop of the Cold War. And it's Darwin Cook, so it's, you fall in love with it instantly, and it's 3 panels per page, and it's just so well written and presented as a story, and you can just see everything intensely in the background as to how much he has built the world behind it. But it's not there's no exposition about that. It's just there, and it's really well presented. So
this is the world. Embrace yourself in it.
Yes, I will forgive DC all its misdemeanors just for The New Frontier.
I will not, I'm afraid. There's too much bad blood between me and DC. Oh. God. So just going back to Bubbles, I mean, I really like what we've done so far, but here's the thing. I would like to see this in an animated, talking about DC, format. I think there is potential for this to, grace the silver screen, or perhaps even the small screen.
It would be so much fun, wouldn't it? I mean, an animated version of Bubbles would be like the ultimate dream, wouldn't it? After it's all pulled together.
I mean, some of the comics we read for this show and on this site, they're very good comics, but they sort of belong just as comics, and that's fine. Not everything needs to be adapted. But this is one of the things where I think, like, I really enjoy this comic. I'd like to see it in other formats. Yeah.
I mean, we've agreed to the Kickstarter video for the first one proved massively popular. So we did 2 after that, which were just kind of fillers. We didn't have a lot of time to do it, but he's going back to the original, that kind of Bond-esque theme and title sequence, and using that as a basis for another kind of introduction to You Only Swing Twice. So that will be fun as well. And it's engaging, and anybody who does a Kickstarter, if you can do a video, absolutely do a video. It will get you so much more traction for your content.
It makes it more real.
It does. Yeah. Tangible. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, God. I'd just like to see it. Who knows where this could go? It's going to be interesting, I think. I'm just trying to think what else I could talk about. I think I had a joke at some point about how it reminded me of the Avengers. No, not that Avengers, the other Avengers, because I know in my mind which Avengers it's talking about, but you don't know at home which Avengers I'm talking about. You might think I'm talking about the 1960 versions or the superhero one, but you just don't know. So when I say, well, this reminds me of Avengers, you might think, really? There's the Hulk in this? No, the Hulk isn't. It's more like John Steed. But that's all I've really got.
That's pretty good.
That was a bit of a stream of consciousness right there. I'm so sorry. Right. A little bit of insight into my mind.
That was great.
I just started recently watching the Avengers properly, because it's one of those British pop culture things that you're always aware of, but you never actually watch. And I tried to make an effort to watch it. I watched part of the because a lot of the episodes of the first season are lost, and it was very different from the rest of the series. So I started watching the second series, episode 1, and just sort of going from there. And I mean, again, it reminds me of the sort of thing, because it's we see a lot of scenes in the comic of Bubbles hanging out in his London pad. You see that with John Steed as well, with Kathy Gale and stuff like that. And it's just little stuff like that I like. And I like that how it's not always him on missions and stuff. It's sometimes you see him relaxing and stuff and talking with people. And he has friends. There was a great scene in one of the comics of him doing a long-distance VR game co-op thing with his friend Alima.
Yes, that my Felix Leiter kind of character, his CIA counterpart in America. Yeah, so he'll be back again, of course, as his sidekick. And then the next 2 villains are actually lemurs as well, and they're going to be very influenced by the 2 bad guys in Diamonds Are Forever, Mr. Flint and Mr. something or other.
Mr. Lint and Mr. Kidd?
Mr. Kidd, that's it, yes. That's the one.
It's definitely Kidd. I don't know if it's Lint.
Yeah, Lint, yeah. So,
what was going on with those guys? Oh, my.
There were some classic scenes. They saved that movie for me. They were brilliant.
There's just 2 guys, and they just murder someone, explode someone, and then they walk away. And as they're walking away, they just start holding hands.
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
What's going on here?
The illusion was there all the way through. And on the plane, when one of them is looking through the curtain and admiring one of the female passengers or a cabin crew, and the other guy's face is just like stone, like, how dare you look at another woman?
I mean, God, there's less, for want of a better word, queer baiting in fucking Sherlock. Jeez.
This is true, yes.
I think that sort of predates the term a lot, but still.
Yeah.
Be nice if they weren't bad guys, but still, who cares? Oh, God. That's what kind of was it. I want to see a smooth, suave, secret agent sort of person who is gay and is getting off with loads of men. I want to see that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, you do know that MI6 is one of the highest recruiters of LGBTQ people.
I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, they are top of the table. And I think the first time they ever alluded to Bond having a split ambiguity in his sexuality was in Skyfall with...
Oh, yeah, with Silva in that scene.
Yeah.
That scene.
I kind of liked that they were bringing that in, because technically when you think about a spy, they have to be able to adapt to every single situation they might find themselves in. So
okay, 007, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to seduce this wealthy business person. No worries, I'm pretty good at that sort of thing. He will be at this part. Wait, he? Yeah, yes, he. I'm not okay with this. You have to do this, Bond. I really don't want to do this. I was trying to do Sean Connery there. It didn't really work at the end.
Well, I could hear it. But yeah, more of that actually would be... It just makes it more real.
We got a bit of that with Atomic Blonde, with her getting off with the mummy lady.
Yes.
Sophia Butello. I can't remember her name. We just talked about her last episode, and I can't remember her name. Oh, God. That was sort of interesting. Well, I say interesting, it was there.
Yeah,
it was there.
Exactly. I mean, if it's there and you don't make a big deal of it and it's just part of the story and it fits, then I don't see an issue with it, quite frankly.
Yeah, I'd like to see more of that. I'm all for more LGBTQI characters and stuff like that, and that's kind of my thing. Except when DC does it, because then they're usually not very good. Well, I say that. That's a bit unfair. Sometimes they have done it rather well. Other times they've had like a transgender supervillain whose supervillain identity revolves around them being transgender. Yeah. And that's a recent thing. That's a fairly recent thing. So, I'll take what I can get, I guess.
Well, if there's a few more women and gay people moving into comics and becoming writers and artists, then that will gradually just infuse into the culture, won't it? Given that it's not a criticism, it's just an observation that the comic scene is primarily dominated by, you could argue, straight white men, and has been for the last however many decades.
We're everywhere, jeez.
But you just need to, when you mix it up and you mix up the diversity and the culture, it will happen naturally, I think, and people won't even notice it happening.
Yeah, and that's sort of what happens in 007. We've got, apes and human beings working together side by side.
Yes. It's not an issue. It's just the world. It's just a thing. It's as real as the universe I put them in.
Yeah. And so on that note, I humbly recommend that you capers, you go out and you go on this Kickstarter and you pledge your little filthy hearts out, and you go and buy the previous issues of 007. So where can people find your comic? Where can people buy it? Where can people get it?
Bounce.co.uk if you want to buy it off the website. And we will be incorporating reward tiers in the new Kickstarter that will allow you to purchase previous issues if that's what you want to do as well, either as a digi or a hard copy format.
Yeah, well, I really hope a lot of people start reading this stuff, because I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you, Scott. That means a lot.
It's no worries, and I look forward to seeing where this goes. I smell Hollywood.
You'll get an invite to the pool party if it happens, don't worry.
Oh, you don't want to see me at a pool party, geez.
Yeah.
Live in Scotland, okay? I'm like a ghost.
You'd be pale and interesting. They'd love you.
It's so bright. What is it? It must be the light of Elendil. No, it's just Scott with his shirt off. Well, thank you so much for joining me. It's been absolutely lovely having you here.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for allowing me the privilege to talk to the Capers and you being my very first podcast. Thank you.
Yeah, we're getting newbies on this podcast. We're getting so many new people. We like it. As the Jock and Nerd would put it, we're popping podcast cherries. Oh, I can't do that. I can't say it. That's their thing. No. Well, thank you, Capers, for listening. So if you enjoyed the show, please tell your friends, shout it from the rooftops. We want to get the word out. If you haven't already, go back and listen to some of our other brilliant episodes, like a previous episode where we were talking about another sort of comic, Kingsman, and its transition to the screen. Oh, it's not a smooth transition, let me put it that way. But you can listen to the show on iTunes, Podbean, YouTube, or at aplacetohangyourcape.com/podcapers. We have got a Patreon, so check out our rewards there, patreon.com/ap2hyc. If you want to get in touch with us, suggest show topics, or maybe even come on the show yourself, you know, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at ap2hyc. Thank you very much to Dan Harris for our lovely logo, that little microphone with the red and blue glasses, those are mine. And thank you for listening. This has been PodCapers, the official podcast of A Place to Hang Your Cape. Cue the music!